Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes, the classic 1956 sci-fi hit which added another trope to the science fiction genre. What do I mean by that? Well, the whole pod people thing has been a concept that's been recommissioned many times throughout all of popular culture since this film was first released. Hey, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and sometimes that imitation isn't imitation at all, but a straight-up remake. And of course, I'm talking about the 1978 remake, which was released in theaters December 22nd, 1978. And let me be clear here, the title of this little video is in no way slanderous towards the original film, which was great on its own merit. It was very suspenseful, very well done, and it was also short, which I always appreciate. Yeah, it clocks in at only 80 minutes, which is not even an hour and a half. And a lot of sci-fi and horror movies from the 50s are pretty damn short, which is why I tend to really dig movies from that time period, because man, I hate long movies. So anyways, yes, the original film was fine all on its own. And the title of this video only infers that the film needed to be remade because, well, it just did. It deserved a modern retelling. Well, I say modern, even though that took place in 78, but you know what I mean. Modern for that time, of course. And it needed to be brought more into the horror spectrum. And boy, oh boy, does this film do exactly that. Everything about it is spooky. Even Donald Sutherland's outrageously curly hair is unsettling. There's just a tension throughout the entire film where you're never quite at ease. And not all of it's visible. In fact, most of the tension is derived from non-visual cues. Yeah, the strange sound effects they use and the weird spooky music adds a whole lot to this. It's a horror movie that's masterfully done in the classic style. It's a horror movie without being horrific. There's no gore, it's just tremendously disturbing. It's an excellent piece of 70s cinema, just like the original film is an excellent piece of 50s cinema. Both films do a tremendous job in their pacing. Now, this 1978 remake is, of course, regarded as a remake, but is it really a remake? Or is it just a reimagining, a retelling, if you will? And really, what is the difference? I suppose the biggest tell here is that a remake reuses and rehashes the same characters from the movie that it's remaking, which of course does sound pretty obvious, but I only say that because the 1978 film doesn't really do that. Well, it kind of does. It just sort of makes them a little bit different. For example, Donald Sutherland, in his outrageously curly hair, plays the lead role of Matthew Bunnell, a city health inspector. In the 1956 film, Kevin McCarthy portrays the lead role of Dr. Miles Bunnell, a physician. In the 1978 film, Brooke Adams portrays the secondary lead role of Elizabeth Driscoll. In the 1956 film, this same secondary lead role is filled by Dana Winter, only this time the character is called Becky Driscoll. In the 1978 film, Jeff Goldblum is at his Jeff Goldblumiest as he portrays Jack Belichick, a struggling writer who runs a spa and mud bath house. In the 1956 film, Jack Belichick is a writer, but not a struggling one. In fact, it seems like he's doing pretty well for himself, and it's never really known if he runs a spa and mud bath house, but I'm guessing he doesn't. And this Jack Belichick is portrayed by King Donovan! Yeah, that's the actor's real name, King Donovan. In either film, the character of Jack Belichick would not be without a wife. In the 1978 film, the great Veronica Cartwright portrays Nancy Cartwright. Yeah, Nancy Belichick. In either film, the character of Jack Belichick would not be without a wife. And in the 1978 film, the great Veronica Cartwright portrays Nancy Belichick. But in the 1956 film, this character is not Nancy Belichick, it's Theodora Belichick, portrayed by the great Carolyn Jones, who of course is most famous for portraying Morticia Addams in the original Addams Family television show. So that's really just some of the differences between the two films, and sure, they're subtle, but their differences all the same. Really, when it comes down to it, a remake, a retelling, a reimagining, even a reboot are basically all the same thing. They're all ways to redo a concept and or premise just by using different methods. And by the way, both films are based on the 1955 novel of the same name by Jack Finney. So the 1978 remake is a remake of a 1956 film, which is a film adaptation, meaning both of these movies are film adaptations. And being that they're both book-to-film adaptations, there are differences, though not as many as is typical for such a practice. With the exception of the ending, the book sort of ends on a very different note than the films do, And spoiler alert here, the book has a rather pleasant ending, wherein the aliens, or pod people if you'd rather, agree to leave Earth, giving no more trouble whatsoever. And where the 1956 film sort of ends on a high note, I guess, the 1978 film certainly does not. Yeah, spoiler alert again, if you haven't seen the 78 film, don't expect a happy ending. Well, it's a happy ending for the pod people, I guess. So very recently, I decided to revisit the 1978 version of this film, because I had not seen it in, like, forever. It had to be 2002 since I last watched this. And back then, I pretty much was a bunch of bong hits who decided to wear a very realistic human costume and watch the movie, so I don't really remember it, if you know what I mean. So basically, when I did watch this again, it seemed like I've never seen it at all. I gotta tell you, I loved it. It holds up very well. It's very tense. It's very spooky. It makes you feel paranoid for reasons you can't really even fathom. It's a very well done movie. If you haven't seen it, really do yourself a favor and watch this immediately. It's a very well done piece of 70s horror, which unfortunately does get buried beneath other pieces of 70s horror. Yeah, it sort of gets shuffled beneath stuff like The Exorcist and Halloween and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which are all very fine films as well. I just think this movie does get sort of forgotten about. And this movie does have its share of cameos. Kevin McCarthy is in this, and we're never quite sure if he's Miles Bennell or not. Yes, this movie playfully leaves that possibility hanging wide open. And Don Siegel makes a cameo as well. He's the director of the original film and some other little-known movies such as, I don't know, Escape from Alcatraz and Dirty Harry. Yeah, you might have heard of them. So anyways, yes, watch this movie if you haven't seen it. Watch it again if you've seen it before. It's well worth it. It's just the right amount of spooky without going over the limit. Thank you very much for watching this little video. Be sure to hit subscribe. Take care out there, and I'll see you next time, only on Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship.
Check out more adventures right here on Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship, and please hit like and subscribe.